Okay, cool. So Julie and Harrington. So we want to have a look at your points. So far, when I'm looking at your home page, Julie, I can
Mm-hmm.
see down this right-hand column here all these different points values.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's telling me that points have been calculating. If they were all zeros, then we would know that something's a bit funny about calculations. We'd need to investigate a bit further about how things are set up.
All right. So
So
the second meet for some reason has got zeros.
that's right. So
That
that
one
tell
back on the 21st. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So let's go have a quick look at that. So there's 0 points here for the 21st. We'll go into the first place we'll go have a look at is go to event and calculate. This then has all the dates of the season
Right. Mm-hmm.
down the left, all the possible points options you may want to use on any given date. And it looks like the Alberta is what you've been keen to use.
Yeah. Is that the best one for us to be using?
Well, it just depends. So most centres tend to have points for PB, points for attendance. So they're not performance based. It's obviously PBs is an internal performance reference from me against myself versus me against my peers.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Attendance is have I turned up each night, or have I turned up each night plus how many events did I participate in, those sorts of things.
Right. Okay.
And
I
then,
think that's how I had them ticked before, and then I've recently changed that. So,
okay, so in theory, most clubs would tend to have this PB column ticked,
mm-hmm.
as well as their attendance column ticked. Then they would have some sort of performance-based other criteria. So that could be Alberta, which is more common in Victoria.
All right.
You're in New South Wales, aren't you?
Yes. Yes.
Yep. So that would normally be the IAAF method. If you wanted to use what they use at multis, that's
Oh, I see. Mm-hmm.
that would be this IAAF version. Otherwise, in Victoria, for their multi-days, they use Alberta. So that those two are common for multi-days or multi-points.
Well, right. Okay.
Which,
So
which,
we're best to be using
yep.
the PBs,
So I'll start ticking these on
number of
for you.
events. Is that?
Yeah, so PB and
Uh-huh.
attendance would be a common starting point.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I'll tick these on now for PB. And then does that sound like something you'd want to use as well?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'll tick that on too. And Alberta, what was your reasoning for ticking Alberta? Was there a particular reason for that?
So I was reading in a section somewhere how it sort of generalises their performances, but I think I was probably misunderstanding because I don't think we need that multi-event
Okay,
type thing at all.
okay. So would you want some sort of performance thing like place? So me against my peers against in each race or each event?
Yes, that's
Okay,
more what we want, I think.
so I'll tick on the place options.
Mm-hmm.
So once we've ticked these on, the next thing we're going to do is just make sure that each of these points types actually have some structure set up for them. Just because we tick a box on doesn't mean it's actually going to give us an outcome that we're looking for.
Okay.
So I'm
So
just,
should we untick the Alberta?
no, it doesn't have to be. So there's no harm in having it on still.
Doesn't have
So you can filter it out later on if you want to. So I'm just coming up here to set up and points.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the different columns that we saw on the other screen, but now as an option. So I'm going to have a look at PB to start with, see if there's any structure in here. So I'll just remove this extra layer. All right, so that's a bit cleaner. So now it's saying if I equal a PB, I'm going to get 1 point. And if I better a PB, I also get 1 point. Does that seem what you're looking for, or would you want a 2 and a 1, or some other value?
Probably equal PB should, what was the second one? Sorry, better it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'd be a 2. Is that?
Yeah, more points if you do better.
Yeah. Yep.
That's pretty common. And do you include the first result as a PB, or is that a benchmark that they need to better before they get a PB?
It's just a benchmark, yes. So we wouldn't include that first one.
So exclude athlete first result as PB, and we'll make that yes, and I'll press submit.
Right.
Okay, so that sorts out PBs. So I'm just going to close this tab, and we're going to have a look at the attendance.
Because we're a new club, their first PB was always a benchmark anyway, so
okay.
They didn't have, their first events were PBs because they didn't have anything to beat previously.
Okay. So right now for attendance, we've got, if you turn up and do one event, you will at least get 10 points. But for every event that you do, you'll get 2 points. So if I turn up and did 5 events, I would have 10 points plus 2 lots of 5, so another 10. So I'd get 20 points for the night.
Right, yes,
that sounds right to you?
I think that sounds right to me. I mean, I'm guided by you, but does that sound fair enough to you?
Yeah, so it just means they'll have obviously some large points values because 10 and 2
is high.
are big numbers, but
it's consistent across all of them anyway.
That's right. And then we had place ticked on, I think. So let's have a look at place.
Yes.
Okay, so you've got, if you get first, you get 3 points. If you get second, you get 2, and if you get third, you get 1 point.
That sounds good to me.
And if you get fourth or fifth, you won't get any points. That sounds...
That's right.
Cool. I'm just having a look on your homepage here. The most amount of kids you've got in one potential race is the 7 females, where you've got 6 kids. So only the first 3.
Yes, actually, that's
yep.
Only the first 3 will be getting points for their place.
That's right. And you're happy with that?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, cool. All right. So
I mean, they're still getting the majority of their points for turning up anyway.
That's right. And if they do a PB, they'll also get points. Yeah. So let's go have a look at something else then. Oh, here we go. We've actually got some points on the 21st now.
Oh, they've come into there now.
Okay, so if we go now and have I'm going to recalculate your PBs, because the first week or 2 or 3, depending on what your rotation is on programs, this should be zeros, because
right, yes,
because they shouldn't have a PB for their first event. It's just a benchmark that we discussed.
Now that we've, yes,
So I'm going to go up here to event, calculate again, and I'm going to ask the system to recalculate the PBs for the season. And I'll just put my email in so that it sends me an email when it's finished. And I'll press submit. So now if we go to the home page, bang, that's already zeroed out. It did have 40 something, and if I refresh again,
yes,
that was 41 and it's now 6, and that was 30 or 40, now it's 8. So it's working its way up through the seasons and readjusting PBs based on that new logic that we've just set.
On the new, yes. Oh, that's good.
Okay, so it saves you having to redo anything manually. It's just doing it for you. So should get an email in the next 10 seconds or so, hopefully, to say that's all been completed. So once it's finished doing that, we'll go and rerun the points calculation. Since we've got PB points, these points will also change because there aren't as many PBs.
Oh, right, it hasn't changed those yet.
Yep, so here we go. It's just said PB calc is complete, so I go thank you. I'm going to come back up here to event, and calculate again. I'm going to ask it to redo the season points.
Redo season. Mm-hmm.
And I put my email in again, so it'll send me an email when it's finished. I press submit. We go to the home page. So let's see how these points here will start to alter as it goes through. So while it's doing the points calculations, we'll run through what the next steps are, and that will be you will want the system to tell you who your age champions are. I'm assuming that's your main the main outcome we're looking for.
That's it too.
Okay, so we have been bouncing in this drop-down event and calculate is where we've been doing most of our work here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we've finished all the calculations, or we're waiting for an email to come in at least with the final calculation, we'll go to reports and the leaderboard, kind of like at the tennis or the golf or whatever your thoughts are on what a leaderboard represents. That's where we're going to go now.
We get that as well.
So in the leaderboard, this gives you a whole bunch of options, which is good and bad. So they're good because it gives you flexibility. The only bad thing is you just, as long as you understand what the options are, then happy days.
Yes.
So do you have age gender champions, or is it just an outright champion? You do age gender?
No, age gender.
Oh, there we go. So points calcs have just finished apparently. So the age gender champ. So because you don't have multiple clubs at your centre, these two are basically the same. If your centre had Club A, Club B, and Club C, then you may want to do a club age gender, but because you've just got Harrington and that's it, either of those two options will do the same thing. So I'll just choose age gender. Do you need a minimum attendance before an athlete can be allowed to be a champion or a potential champion?
Yes, we do.
Do you remember what that might be?
So do they want a percentage or a figure?
Percentage.
So it's 16 out of 22 weeks. So that's
okay, so let's bring up the calculator.
70%, I think.
70. Sounds pretty good. 16 divided by 22. 72. Yep. So we're going to choose in here 70%, or we could choose 75. So depending on...
Yeah, 70. Sounds good.
Okay, so it's saying we want it ordered by age, gender, points, and points will be greatest to smallest. Only show me people that have attended at least 70%. Do you care what events or what dates or anything like that, or is it just any date of the season, any event of the season? Let's see who our champions are. Yep.
Any of those.
Cool. So the simple way is just do age, gender, points, choose 70, cruise past everything else on the screen, and come down here to the bottom where it says View, and click on that. And here we go. So,
all right. So we don't have to select any of those ones in the middle?
Only if you felt like you needed to. So, for example, some centres only allow particular dates of the year to be used for points.
Where they do just championship days or something.
That's it.
Which I know we're... Yeah, okay.
One thing though, this one here is going to be something to focus on. Because we don't need the Alberta and we haven't unticked Alberta, this is where we can now filter. So we could go place, use my control key, and I'll click on attendance and I'll click on PB. So now we may have every points option set up, but for whatever reason we only want to focus on place, attendance, and PB.
On those, yes, good.
And then I'm going to press this button again. Points values have changed because we've just filtered it to those three instead of including Alberta.
Right.
And here's your champion. So 6 female, 415 points with 93.33% attendance is Tani Jane.
Beautiful.
First place for 7 female is Lillian. Second place for 7 female is Dakota, and so on. So that's all you got to do. So this is only those athletes that met that 70% criteria.
Met that, right.
If we change that value,
so if we did want to get points for every child, we can just bring down that 70% if we wanted to.
So I'm just going to make it none now, so it's not going to cut off anyone.
All right.
And I'll press view again. And here we go. Now we've got more athletes. And we can see we've got some 60s, some 33s, some 20s, some 66s. These are all percentages that I'm reading out. So that's why they didn't make it in that 70% plus grouping, because they were well under that percentage.
Well under that, yes. Okay, very good.
So if you felt like 70 was too harsh, maybe you could go, all right, let's try 50 and see who makes a cut with that. And then you go, all right, cool, we've got a few more people. It won't be as limited. And maybe the committee's happy with that, maybe not, but at least you know how you can adjust things if you need to.
All good. No, that's excellent. That was where I was struggling what to tick on.
Yeah,
on that page, so that's made a lot more sense.
So just make sure when you get to this screen that you select the ones you need. So I'm not sure if you ever use the control key on the keyboard while you're using your mouse clicker, the left.
Yes, so that you can click them all at the one time. Yep.
That's it. If I use the shift key, I'll get everything from the first one to the last one, which I don't want. But if I use the control key, I can do independent ones. Yeah.
The one, okay. Now, if we had the Alberta unticked, we wouldn't have to bother with that?
Correct. So if we go back here to event and calculate, and we untick everything that we don't need, then you won't have to think about it.
I'm just saying, if we did untick that, we could then, on that other screen, we wouldn't have to tick.
We'll just want to recalculate all the points again so that it zeroes out the ones that we've unticked.
Oh, right, yep.
So did you want me to do that then, if we turn these ones off?
We might do that, yes.
Just to save any accidental points calcs. So here we go. So we're just going to untick all these. Okay, so we just place PB attendance. I'm going to ask you to do a new points calc. It's going to kick away on that. Got some different numbers happening on the home page now. If I keep refreshing, they're all coming back down to the 300s instead of the thousands. You can see those numbers getting smaller as they go up the screen. So we can see it's up to the 16th of November. If I refresh, it's now all the way up to the 11th of January, and I'll do one more refresh and we'll be pretty well finished. And I should get an email any second now, in which case we then go back to reports, leaderboard. There's my email about to come in. And we won't have to do any filtering here.
Any filtering there, right.
We do have the age, gender thing to look at.
Right, yep.
We could still do that 70 if we wanted to.
The percentage we decide upon.
Yeah. And then go view. And now we're back to where we were before.
Lovely. So at this point, are they the only children that have reached 70%?
70 plus, yep.
70 plus, yes. Lucky we've got a few weeks to go. We'll see how that works.
And then one more thing you may want to do is, if you come in here, you can do certificates at the end of the season. So by certificate,
all right. Yes.
So if I just choose a bunch of athletes, And I can put things in here, messages and details if I like, but I'll just go to view so you get to see what it's like. So put your logo in there, the season, their name, their age, the gender, and the center. The number of PBs, their percentage of attendance, number of records, the events they've done for the season, their season best, the number of PBs for each event, the number of times they've done that event, and their average.
And then they can be then printed out, can they?
Yeah, so if I go Control P for print, it's now split that out into separate pages.
Oh, beautiful.
And then you can print that off or go down to your Officeworks or whatever. You do also have an option up here. You can publish it through to their family area. So instead of having to hand out paper, if you didn't want to print paper, you could go and publish it to their family area instead of doing a hard copy. You're sending them a soft copy effectively into their family area. But that's something else to consider. And one thing I haven't mentioned is every time you see a green question mark on a page like this, if you click on that, it opens up the help forum, so all the different help topics with screenshots and videos and so on, to help you know what that page is about.
All right, lovely.
So if you ever get to a page and you're like, I'm not sure what this is, if there's a green question mark, click on it and it'll help you out, hopefully.
It takes you to the, beautiful.
So how does that sit with you now?
Oh, no, that's making a lot more sense. That's lovely.
Awesome. Okay, so as mentioned, this is being recorded, so if you forget what I've done or you've seen or said, it will be up in the YouTube channel so that you can go back and refresh yourself, and anybody else now that's got a similar sort of questions will hopefully be able to see this too and help themselves along the way.
Yeah, so I can now get anyone else that wants to go through this with me to look at that.
They'll be able to watch and listen to what you and I have been chatting about.
So how would we search for that?
I'll send you the link after, but if you just go to YouTube,
the link, okay, beautiful.
If you're familiar with YouTube at all, and in YouTube, you just look for timing solutions.
I'll just search,
And somewhere along the way, you'd come up with something like this. And we'll have videos and so on in there.
All good.
But I'll send you the link anyways.
Lovely, thank you very much. That's wonderful.
Okay, well, if that's all for tonight, we'll let us know if you've got any more questions, but you have a great evening.
Okay, lovely. Thanks very much, Nick. Sorry I held you up for a while.
That's all right.
That's been a big help.
Okay, you have a good night, Jolly.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.